you know,
Why do you sit so close to me?
you know what, when we're sitting on the couch, you need to be like this. This is what you need to be like.
Yeah,
And
so
like
we're
nuzzling
connecting.
it. And then
We're
it's
at
like,
work, babe. Stay professional. Hi, everyone. So we are about 2 months in, or maybe a little bit over 2 months in now, to our keto project, or keto and metabolic therapies project. And trying it out as a means of seeing if it's a potential treatment for my schizoaffective disorder. And so we just wanted to take some time to have a bit of a conversation with you guys and with each other about how it's been going up to this point, what our experiences looked like, things we may have struggled with, things that are going well, and what we're hoping the next several months look like as well.
so I think that we're through kind of the beginning phase of this project in terms of getting started, figuring out what it is that we can eat, making some mistakes, and tracking ketones. We now have kind of a good idea of basically where we're at on average, I think, for like ketones. You're usually pretty high, like in the 4s and even 5s, and I'm still like kind of in the high 1s.
We don't really know why that is.
Your liver works better than mine at converting fat into
a superior specimen.
Yeah, you love it.
My inner competitiveness really comes out when it comes to measuring ketones. And perhaps that's actually something that
is not healthy.
Yeah. Where I am like, I need to get the highest ketone levels. And my focus should be more on, okay, well, am I feeling good? How am I feeling? Which it is shifting more into, but there was definitely that little bit of an endorphin rush of getting
It's not a competition.
high ketones.
I'm satisfied with my ketone levels.
Okay, well, we'll get into how you're feeling later.
That sounded like well, you're not feeling as good as me.
No, it wasn't like that. I mean, I think people, have been asking, how is Rob doing through all this as well? Because he's doing the same medical intervention that I am as well. And so, yeah, I want to know more about your mental health and whatnot as well. But we should probably give a quick update because we haven't been doing as much of the vloggy updates as of late, and we kind of just left you hanging after we were like, I made a big mistake with the exogenous ketones. So what happened with that was got knocked out of ketosis,
we had the exogenous ketones. As sweet as like a slushy or whatever.
There was no sugar in them, but they tasted so sweet through artificial sweeteners that I think our bodies assumed we had just consumed glucose, and our blood sugar skyrocketed and our ketone levels dropped drastically. And so we both got knocked out of ketosis, essentially. And immediately, we took it before soccer, which was in the evening that night. And on the way home from soccer, I was experiencing symptoms and I was feeling scared that I was in psychosis.
It was fast.
It was extremely fast. Like, kind of mind-blowing, actually, how quickly that happened, getting bumped out of ketosis.
And it lasted, we recorded a video, and I think you recorded a separate update video the next day, but it lasted a few days. You're not feeling great.
I was off.
Even though your ketones had come back up.
Yeah, I was off and not feeling good for probably a week following that. And throughout that week, my ketones were kind of all over the place. It seemed like they were kind of trying to regulate themselves again. Sometimes they were almost where I was at normally. Sometimes they were really low, and they were just kind of fluctuating quite a bit. So it had a big impact on my body. But after that week or so, it kind of stabilized again back to where I was before taking the exogenous ketones. And I have my regular ketone levels, which are, 3s to 5s, and I'm feeling good again. I'm feeling stable again and back to where I was before taking the exogenous ketones. But good lesson. So that's an update on that kerfuffle that we shared with you. But then I think it's also worth chatting a little bit more about the last video we put out, where it was titled, Are You Mad at Me? And I talked about people's kind of difficult feelings with this project and me.
I think it's something that we've been kind of surprised about in general.
And I've been struggling with it. I've been struggling with some of the response to this project. Now, don't get me wrong. I know that there are a lot of you who are supportive of it and giving encouragement and maybe even being encouraged to try some of the things we're talking about yourselves, which is great. But I've been really surprised and taken aback by the negative response to this project as well. And I talked about in the last video how I can empathize and understand with that to a degree. But I think something that I really want to clarify here for everyone is that I am making this decision to attempt to use the ketogenic diet and other metabolic therapies as a means of treating my schizoaffective disorder, my mental illness. I've done research, I've looked into it, I've talked to experts, and I think that it's something that I think is worth trying.
I mean, I think it goes even further than that in that you have already seen results.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is that this is a personal decision that I made, and I'm choosing to share it on the internet on the off chance that it could help other people. I'm not at all saying that if you're watching this, you have to do what I'm doing. That is not at all my approach here. This is essentially a case study, a singular case study about trying out the keto diet and metabolic therapies to treat my schizoaffective disorder. And I'm sharing my experience and what I'm learning with you all. If you want to take that information and apply it to your own life, great. If you don't, that's okay. I'm not asking you to do that. I'm simply putting the information out there in the hopes that it could maybe help other people as well, or even in the hopes that it could show researchers or people funding interventions for mental illness other options than just the typical medication route, and exploring if there are ways to treat or manage mental illness that may feel better to some people. You know, we've gotten people saying, I'm more than happy to just take my meds and they're working fine for me. And if that's working for you, that's great. But and I know some other people still experience a degree of suffering, even on these medications. And so to me, I feel it's worth trying something that may work and it may not work in an effort to alleviate some of that suffering within myself. And perhaps other people will feel the same about trying something like this.
Something that we haven't talked a lot really at all on this channel is how you were never ever prescribed a treatment like this as an intervention from any of your medical team in the past. And I think that's doing a great disservice to, to you in terms of even just allowing you to know what all of your options are. Like if this was a treatment option that was on the table for you and you made the decision like, that's not for me, I can't do that because of accessibility or cost or discipline or whatever. There's a lot of reasons why it's more difficult. That would be something, but it was a treatment intervention that was just never even brought to your attention.
But I get that a degree of that is that this is all new and emerging. The gold standard for, trusting method of treatment is, the randomized control trials. And those don't exist yet. They're in the process of being done currently. So I get to an extent why it's not offered from the medical system currently. But, doing my own research and digging into it, it just seems like, why wouldn't I give it a try? And, that was kind of what I came to this project thinking, why not give it a try? If it works, amazing. My life will be improved and I will feel better. If it doesn't work, is it really that big of a deal that I ate differently and took care of my body in other ways for 6 months? No, probably not. And so
it was one of those things that seemed really low risk to try.
Yeah. But now, 2 months into it, I'm a little blown away at the differences that I am experiencing in terms of my mental health, my capacity, my well-being. I feel like I keep just saying how good I'm feeling and how much my capacity and wellness has improved and mental clarity and experience of symptoms. I don't really experience symptoms of schizoaffective disorder hardly at all right now. And I'm also on the lowest dose I've ever been on of my antipsychotic. And so it's kind of wild to me how obvious it is that this change in my lifestyle through diet and exercise and focusing on sleep and all these metabolic therapies is having such a profound impact already 2 months in. And I feel like it's not very good storytelling what we're doing, because it's just kind of all like, yeah, things are going great. This is awesome. Like, there's nothing wrong. I get that there's a desire for,
Where's the drama?
a conflict, a struggle or whatever. But I think it's a good thing that that's not existing. And I think that it's really encouraging for me, and hopefully for some of you watching, that intervention like this could be so effective. So that's my experience of my mental health at this 2-month mark. I've gone down on meds 40%. I was on 100 milligrams of my antipsychotic, and I'm now on 60, which is the lowest I've been on. And the last time I was on that low of a dose, I ended up in the hospital. And I just feel incredibly stable and clear of symptoms. Like, I feel really hesitant to say that because, it's been 2 months, but it's definitely a different experience of my symptoms and my illness than I was having 2 months ago. So yeah, I was going to say, what is your mental health like? You're doing the same medical intervention as I am, but you don't have a diagnosed mental illness. So what is that experience like for you? Do you notice any differences?
From a mental health perspective, difficult to say. Maybe a little bit more like clarity, if you could call it that. I think that it's probably, and maybe it's just because that's where my focus has been, but more like on like how my body has been feeling, like a lot of reduced inflammation in my body. Like, I had talked about knee pain in the last video, and no knee pain at all. And one thing that I was noticing is how quickly it feels like my body recovers after a workout. So, we'll be in the gym, or we'll be doing like a strength training exercise, and it will be intense. And usually the day after, or the day after the day after, there's pretty intense muscle soreness. And I think specifically because of keto, but I'm not sure, like, that is way less. Like, our bodies are able to recover a lot faster.
I hadn't actually taken account of that, but yeah, I haven't experienced much soreness, even though we have upped drastically how much we're going to the gym and doing strength training and doing workouts. And yeah, that's interesting. And how are your poops?
They're okay. I think that I had figured out that the problem was too much cheese, and that like the calcium does something. The calcium in the cheese does some kind of binding thing. I'm not totally sure. I kind of researched Google and then just kind of threw everything at the wall in terms of like trying to like fix the problem. But I think what really helped was like digestive enzymes and this like fiber 4 supplement that I like started taking on a kind of regular basis.
There was something going on in your gut microbiome that wasn't happy.
And I keep thinking, oh yeah, now I can eat all the cheese that I want. And no, it's like, there's something to do with cheese. And so when I dial it back, it's like, okay, but I'm a happier person now. So
he is much happier now that he's got things flowing again. Movement.
So I guess on the topic of kind of like physical recovery, another thing that I've noticed is, and part of this could be chance, but I don't think it's totally chance. It's that we haven't gotten sick, like, really at all since we started keto. And it could be because at the end of last year, like, our house got hit by COVID and the flu, and it was kind of terrible. But over the past 2 months, like, I would say typically we get some kind of like respiratory infection per month, like a cold or something that the kids bring home from school or daycare. And our kids have gotten sick. Yeah. And we didn't, which is pretty weird. Like, usually they get sick and then it's like, oh no, that it's coming. And you can't really do anything about it because you're in constant proximity to them. But this time it was like, we saw them getting sick and then we didn't get sick. I got actually a little bit of like runny nose, and that was it. And that was a pretty weird response. Like, I think our body did a much better job of fending that off.
I didn't get that, but I did feel like kind of weirdly tired for 2 or 3 days, but that was the extent of it. And I think that was our body being sick on keto. So That's cool.
I mean, I like to think that there's that kind of response benefits.
Yeah, probably worth looking into the science behind that, but that's our anecdotal experience of keto and being sick.
I mean, I think this might not have to do specifically with keto, but it might have more to do with drastic reduction in sugar, because I think sugar was a problem with that in terms of autoimmune response.
And so that was kind of our body handling stress in the form of sickness in a different way, or maybe a better way. But also, we mentioned it in one of the vlogs that we've been experiencing. I was going to call it an acute, but it's turning into a chronic stressor in our life that has been really difficult to deal with, and that we've been going to therapy over, agonizing over a little bit, and it's been stressful and hard to get through. And usually a stressor of that magnitude would kind of just derail me in terms of increased symptoms because of stress. Stress is a big trigger for symptoms for me. And so
you would be in bed a lot.
I would be in bed, like before this all, if we were experiencing the same stressor, I have no doubt that I would be spending hours a day in bed, resting, trying to avoid experience of symptoms. I would probably be needing to speak with my psychiatrist about upping my dose of meds, because I know that my symptoms would be exacerbated by this degree of stress. But it's been kind of amazing to me how my capacity to handle and manage stress like this has increased. I am still able, I'm still not experiencing symptoms, even though I'm under stress, psychological stress. And I still feel stable through it all. I feel like I have the capacity to, not always, sometimes I don't feel like I have the capacity to deal with it, but that's just because it's stressful. I feel like ultimately, from a dealing with my illness point of view, it's just not a factor in terms of managing the stress, which is hard for me to wrap my head around. What do you, you're going through this stressor too? Do you feel?
And so I was thinking about how, when you're what's the mental health benefits for you? I think about how that, the stressors in our life right now, and it's kind of difficult to deal with. There's always stressful things that kind of pop up in your life, and you're trying to deal with it. And I'm just trying to imagine, what would our life be like if we had no stressors to deal with? And would my mental health feel a lot better? And maybe it's hard to say.
But do you feel that you have had increased capacity to deal with kind of intense stress over the last several weeks, or however long it's been?
I think that one of the ways that I deal with stress is my physiological response is my body feels really tired, and I nap. I will sleep in the middle of the day kind of thing. And I felt like I have more energy. So perhaps less of a psychological and more of just a
physical resiliency.
Yeah.
Rob doesn't explore his feelings. It's just all physical.
I go to therapy. We work stuff out. I think that you are looking for some kind of response that's just taking keto for when you don't have a mental illness is that Limitless movie where you're you take a pill and you're just you start to see formulas and stuff. And it's not like that. It's not like me being on keto without a mental illness is all of a sudden my world is changed. I feel good. I feel like this is the healthiest that I've been in a long time. And there's a level of confidence that comes with that. And there's a level of clarity and wanting to figure out how can I do more? How can I go farther?
I think what you're describing is really just the benefits you get from taking care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do that a multitude of different ways. And I think maybe what I'm trying to see if there's any difference here is I have a mental illness. And so according to this, brain energy theory and the metabolic health theories, is that I had increased metabolic dysfunction over you. And so it makes sense that an intervention that is addressing metabolic dysfunction or repairing mitochondrial health and whatnot is going to make drastic changes to my experience of my metabolic dysfunction, my mental illness. That makes sense. You don't have that mental illness and metabolic dysfunction. So I was just wondering, like, what is that experience then for you? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's why where I'm coming from is maybe more noticing the like physiological changes, the like faster recovery, more energy, not needing to sleep as much, less colds and respiratory infections, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Less bodily inflammation, and like it being at a level where you notice it. It's not like I think this might be happening. It's like all of those things are very like, wow, I see how this is having an effect on my body and my life.
And I'm experiencing all of those things too, but just the magnitude of how my experience of my mental illness has changed kind of eclipses all of that, even though it is still a very big and noticeable change. The magnitude of the improvements I'm seeing in my mental illness is just huge and is what I obviously am noticing the most. So something that a lot of you have actually been pointing out in the comments is that you are noticing or feeling like my excessive blinking has diminished. And just to kind of explain, I've explained it in other videos, but my excessive blinking that is often comes about in videos is a form of tardive dyskinesia that has come as a result of prolonged use of my antipsychotic medication. So that sucks.
Maybe we'll put a clip in of like some of the videos.
No, don't. We're not going to do that. No, I hate it. I don't know I'm doing it, but we noticed that it did seem like it was greatly reduced. And I don't know, you look at me every day. Do I blink a lot still? Or?
Well, I'm starting to be more aware of it now because people are commenting. And it's like, sometimes it's lower and sometimes it's regular.
And I think that we just posted an interview with Dr. Brett Scher. Check that out if you haven't yet. I was really tired and a little bit off that day. And so my blinking in that video is kind of back to being excessive at times. And so I think that it is a degree of, when I'm more tired, the tardive dyskinesia comes out a little bit more pronounced. But generally, I do think it actually has been improving. So I've never heard of that before, the keto diet or metabolic therapies improving something like tardive dyskinesia, but perhaps.
Yeah, just by having reduced antipsychotic medication.
Well, I don't know if it works that way.
If you know, let us know.
So that's kind of a general update of how things have been going over the last 2 months, things we've been struggling a little bit with, or things we wanted to clarify for you. Where we're going to be going next in this series of videos is getting more into the other types of metabolic therapies. So like Rob was saying, we're feeling pretty solid now in terms of knowing what we need to do to follow the ketogenic diet and to stay in ketosis. And so now we're going to be doing kind of a deeper dive and more of a concentrated focus on things like exercise, on things like sleep, on things like social engagement, and diving deeper into the different kinds of other metabolic therapies that go into improving metabolic health as well. So thank you for watching, and as always, wishing you and your loved ones good health. We'll see you in the next video. Bye.
Bye.